Wrestling is life. Wrestling is life. Wrestling is life is wrestling.
Welcome everyone to another episode of Wrestling is Life is Wrestling with Cody Deaner. I am Cody Deaner and I am a professional wrestler. I'm a professional wrestling producer. I am a professional and traveling motivational speaker. I'm a proud father of 4 children and a husband to a beautiful wife. And I'm also a professional podcaster. I'm a prod. I'm a prude. No, I'm a podcaster. I love that I just said I'm a professional podcaster, yet I couldn't even say professional podcaster. I guess I'm a professional podcaster because you got to be paid to be a professional, and I'm getting paid. Why? Because I have an amazing sponsor in Rest When Dead clothing. Go check them out at restwhendead.ca or on Instagram at restwhendeadclothing. If you're watching this on YouTube at Cody Deaner Podcast, you can see the wicked awesome hat that I am wearing. You can see the wicked awesome t-shirt in the background there. You can go see more of this and all their super cool designs. They're high quality materials. You just feel it when you put these things on your head. This is actually a stretch hat, but it's like a snapback, but with a stretch, which I've never had before. And man, I could wear this hat all day long. Go check them out, restwhendead.ca at Rest When Dead Clothing. Look, I want to put over the owner, the operator, the guy that runs all of Rest When Dead. He doesn't know that I'm about to say this, but I want to say it. I want to say his name on air. It's Aaron York. And Aaron York decided to start this business because he knew that he wanted to focus on people that just work hard, that are determined, that have this never say die kind of attitude, the same attitude that he has and that I have personally, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to connect with Aaron and Rest When Dead. And he decided when he started this small business that he wanted to source his materials as much as possible from North America to give back to the local economy, support local business. And then he also donates the majority of the profits. They do donations within the fitness industry and then various sponsorships within the fitness industry. So if you buy their stuff, you're also supporting initiatives that promote health and wellness in local communities. If that is not an awesome, cool thing, then I don't know what is. For people that have been following my career for a long time, I do a lot of charity work through my Giver for Charity. I'm all about giving back to the community. I'm also someone that always supports local. I get things as close to me as possible when I'm purchasing things. So, man, my mindset just about the world is exactly in line with Rest When Dead. I'm so happy that I found them, and I'm so happy that they found me. And I want you to find them and support them as well. So go to restwhendead.ca and Rest When Dead Clothing on Instagram. Other ways to support not just my sponsors, but me. I have a pro wrestling tee store at prowrestlingtees.com/Cody Deaner. I'm doing cameos over at cameo.com/Cody Deaner. And I'm also doing Patreon. Thank you to my Patreon listeners, my patrons at whatever level you're doing, whether it's even like a level 0 where you're just giving me a couple bucks, or you're jumping up to level 1 and you're getting some exclusive bonus content. Then thank you. If you're a patron listener, you have already listened to this episode, the part 1 and part 2 of the interview today with Jessicka Havok. You've already got it. You got it early before the people that are listening to this for free, and you got it ad free. So thank you to my patrons. Go check out all the content there and consider supporting the show through my patreon.com/Cody Deaner. My guest, Jessicka Havok, as I said, she has done a lot. And she's a very unique guest and someone that I was really looking forward to talking to and having a conversation with, not just because of the stuff that you might know her from, like Combat Zone Wrestling or Shine Wrestling, or back when she originally debuted in TNA, or she wrestled in Japan, or she was in WOW, or the stuff that she's currently doing in Impact, whether it was the stuff she did with Decay or the wicked cool stuff she's doing right now with the Death Dolls. Jessicka Havok is a unique guest and one that I wanted to have on here, not just because I wanted to have the female perspective on wrestling is life is wrestling, but the perspective of someone who's been in this business for a very long time, this wrestling business. She's been at this for close to 2 decades, and she has seen a lot, and she broke into the business right around the same time that I did. So I have a unique perspective on this business, doing this for 23 years. I saw it back in the early 2000s when wrestling was a lot different than it is now, not just on camera and on screen, but also behind the scenes. And Jessicka has experienced that same life, that same world that I experienced 20 years ago. She experienced it behind the scenes, but as a female. And let me tell you, 20 years ago, when you broke into the business 20 years ago, it was a lot different. And then you rewind 10, 15, 20 years before that, and the females that had to break in and help this business grow to what it is today, they went through some stuff too, and she recognizes that and honors that in our talk. So we're going to give you a very unique perspective, a very I want to say opinionated perspective, because Jessicka is opinionated. She has some strong opinions, but not like in a negative sense, like, oh man, she's got some opinions, this one. No, she's got a very positive opinion on things, despite maybe some of the negative things that she's experienced, what she will be talking about here today. And I know that somebody that is maybe going through a rough time or been through some of the negative experiences that Jessicka has been through, you are going to especially like this episode, and I think it's going to help you, which is one of the things that I love about doing this podcast. I know that these conversations that I'm having with people are helping my listeners, and that means you. If that is you, please hit me up on @Cody Deaner on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Are we still calling it Twitter? I guess it's not technically Twitter, but I'm calling it that anyways. Hit me up. Take a screenshot of listening to this episode right now. Send it out to all your friends and family and all your followers, and let the world know how much you are enjoying Wrestling is Life is Wrestling. The chart topping podcast. We keep topping the charts here, guys. We are moving on up, both in Canada and the United States and all around the world. I got a lot of fans over in Great Britain that are listening to this right now. Shout out to you guys. And I have people all over the world that are listening to you. So worldwide right now, I just want to give you all a shout out and say thank you for supporting this project. And I want you also to support Jessicka. Let me give you some stuff that if you want to go check her out after you listen to this, let me give it to you right now. I'll give it to you at the end too, but go to her Twitter @FearHavok. That's FearHavok. Or on Instagram, she's putting out great content over there @Havoc Death Machine. Or check her out on Twitch. She has started and is maintaining and flourishing a very positive community over on Twitch, which we talk about in our talk here. And that's just Jessicka Havok on Twitch. That's JESSICKAHAVOK. There's a K in Jessicka. Why? Because she's sick. So this is my friend Jessicka. We have a great talk, and we've had many talks in the past, life talks, while both working together at Impact Wrestling, which is the case with a lot of my guests. I have access to these people, and I've developed friendships with these people by working with them both on camera and behind the scenes. And I get to know these people. And once I've had these great talks with them, life talks, it's those talks that I've had with them. Like, wait a minute, we could have a podcast. I could have a podcast. I could start something. And I think people could be helped by these conversations. One of those people that I've had some awesome conversation, real life conversations about some tough issues is my friend Jessicka Havok. So rather than just have a private conversation, we have a very public one, which you're about to listen to now. And I hope you enjoy it. So let's get her started. Let's listen to part 1 with my friend Jessicka Havok. All right, here we go. I'm here with Jessicka.
Hi.
Hey, thank you for doing this so
Thank
much.
you for having me. I'm honored, honestly. I respect you greatly as a person and as a wrestler. So when you asked me to do this, I was like, yes.
Oh man, we're starting off hot, Jessicka. You're putting me over already.
Yeah,
man,
I have to.
I'm supposed to be doing that for you.
It's all right.
I will say you didn't hear it. I just recorded a show opening that was a very glowing review of you where I just put you over for many minutes. So
thank
you
you.
can go back and listen to that. I will be
Yeah.
I don't do the typical put over while the person's on air. It all comes after. So I just put you over. The audience just heard it. So I know you didn't, but I think the same of you, or I wouldn't have asked you to be on here. We have a mutual friend that was one of my very first guests in Rosemary. She gave me an hour of her time, and we had a wonderful conversation. And she set the bar pretty high for my podcast in terms of content and meaningful, in-depth discussion. But I had you as one of the top people on my list as well. So I'm very glad that you agreed to do this, because I feel like you have a very interesting story both in wrestling and in life, and we've had a chance to talk and have some good little life talks backstage at Impact before, and which is why I thought of you, not just because you're an awesome wrestler and what you've done in the business, but kind of some of the discussions we've had surrounding life at work.
Absolutely.
So yes. And for those that are watching this on YouTube, you have seen, I think, Theo, Jessica's cat, a couple times on screen. So if you're just listening to this, make sure you go check out the YouTube, because we've seen Theo. And we also learned before we hit record here that we both have cats named Theo. Should we put over Theo right now, Jessica? Because he's probably going to be coming in. Theo's going to be coming in and out of the screen, I'm assuming, a couple times.
So I think he's kind of mad at me now because I just set him down on the floor and it looks like he's crawling into his bed. Like if you saw my streaming office, which is basically I spend more time here after I'm done. Like this morning, I got up, got my coffee, watered my garden. We did DDP yoga today, and then every time, once I'm done with all the stuff, I just come sit up in my office to do whatever I need to do, and he's always right there in my face. But yeah, Theo's great. He's 3 years old. He actually turned 3 in August, and he has thumbs.
He has thumbs.
He has thumbs. So that's what I have to put that over every time. So
Theo's got thumbs for your gaming streaming. He's got his thumbs to be button bashing. I want to make sure that we talk. I don't want to jump around here. I try to do things somewhat chronologically, but I definitely want to talk about you being in your office and streaming and doing content creation. That definitely plays into your story. Something that I think is really fascinating right now in the wrestling business in terms of how people are bringing in multiple revenue streams. And there's a lot of people that are listening to this that aren't necessarily wrestling fans. They're kind of business oriented and looking for different motivational type of ideas through listening to wrestlers like you and me. So definitely something I want to hit on. Let's use Theo as a transition, as a way to start this for me. Did you have cats growing up when you were young? Are you a cat lover?
Well, I've been an animal lover in general, ever since I was little. I always remember we've always had cats and dogs. And even when I was very, very young, I always was I want to be a veterinarian. And then around 9 years old, I was I want to be a wrestler. And it was just one of those crazy things. But I remember the first thing I ever wanted to be was a veterinarian. And so I've always just loved animals and have, like I said, I have always had cats and dogs growing up. I always thought I was a dog person until I actually, after I graduated high school, my first job was a kennel assistant at a vet clinic. And then while I was there, doing the kennel assistant stuff, which is walking all the dogs that are overnight in the hospital and then making sure everybody's fed and watered, medicated and all that. And then I ended up transitioning into being a vet tech through there. And what a lot of people may not know is that for the first 10 years of my wrestling career, I was also a full-time veterinary assistant. So,
wow.
Yeah, I helped with surgeries and just like helping like draw blood on cats and dogs, and like putting like IV catheters in, and like all that stuff. Like it, and then through working at the vet clinic, I was like, I think I might be a cat person. So I don't know. I don't know where that came from, but
oh, cool. So this is interesting. You just said a lot of people may not know that you were a vet tech for the first 10 years of your career. Some people don't know what I was doing during my original decade of hustling. Is I got my teaching degree, and
that's
so
awesome.
I started doing substitute teaching because the pay was good.
Yeah.
Teaching people and speaking to youth was something I was passionate about, and it gave me a whole lot of flexibility in terms of I could get up and just go and do the wrestling thing whenever I needed, because I was my own manager. Was your place of employment, were they really good with you in terms of, hey, I got this indie booking, I got to go drive 9 hours and do this thing? Like, were they cool with that, or how did that go?
Honestly, like I was very lucky. I worked at 2 different vet clinics. The vet clinic that I worked at initially, I was also already wrestling for about a year. So like they kind of knew like what was going on. And one of the co-owners of that clinic, I was actually best friends with his daughter through high school. So like that's how I initially got my foot in the door there. So like they kind of knew that I was a wrestler and stuff, and like I was even still going to training 4 days a week on top of like a split shift 5-day a week vet assistant job. And then there were some things that at that particular clinic, I worked there for 2 years, but like I just witnessed some things that I felt I didn't really want to work for somebody who treated animals the way that this person was. And like, so I ended up going and leaving and going and working at a different vet clinic called Aquadale in North Lawrence, Ohio. And it's, they were very, very accommodating to that schedule. And like, cause I was wrestling, I mean, you know how it is, like when you're first wrestling and stuff, and like even holding down a full-time job. And I will say, and a lot of us do go through this, especially anybody who has any type of success in pro wrestling. Your journey might be different from mine, and to Rosemary's and Steve, and like all these different people that we know, which is the beauty of pro wrestling, is like even though our sacrifices might not have been the same sacrifices, anybody who has had any type of success in wrestling, we have made so many sacrifices to do this. And I think that's what people don't understand. But the vet clinic that I worked at for like the rest of the, those 8 years, like they were really, really like understanding. And I was, cause I was driving some weekends 15 hours one way for like peanuts as far as like pay and like even holding down a full-time job and then like trying to also be a wrestler. My bank account was in the red a lot. It was just, it was a struggle, because then I was living on my own and stuff like that. So it was a struggle, but I was very grateful for the veterinarian that I worked with, and even my coworkers. They were so like great about like, yeah, I'll trade you this weekend if you could cover my shift, whatever. Like, so it was very nice, because not everybody is so lucky to get.
No, that breaks a lot of people. I know a lot of people that they chase, they're chasing this dream like you and I have. And it's within those first 5-6 years where they're like, well, how do I support myself in independent wrestling? Like a lot of people don't realize, like for me, I didn't get my first big break in television contract until 10 years in.
Oh my God.
Right. So
me too.
Okay. There you go.
Yeah, it was 10 years. I can relate so much.
So you tell this to the average person, they go, wait a minute, you made next to no money for a decade before you got a break in your career? And it's like, yep. where that cracks most people in any line of work. They just would assume, well, why didn't you just give up? Like, why didn't you just stop? Like, when's the breaking point? And for most people, it's before 10 years. For me, it wasn't. Why didn't that break you? Was it because you had this job and maybe like this financial safety net you try to build for yourself? Was that partially what helped, or like what was it mentally that kept you moving for those 10 years?
I don't know. I think I was just so hell-bent on proving certain people wrong, because and also too, like, I'm sure that you've had points in your career where you've been just like, I'm done. I want to quit, whatever. Like I always tell people anytime, because like, Sammy and I have a wrestling school where we train people to wrestle. And like, I always tell people when they ask my advice, like, oh, what do you, what's some of the advice you could give for somebody just starting out and stuff like that. And honestly, one of the biggest things is patience. And I don't sugarcoat things with them. I always tell people, like, if you don't have thick skin, this job may not be for you. But I always encourage people, like, you should try and see. 'Cause I would hate to be the person to be like, man, be like 45 years old and be like, oh, why didn't I try to wrestle? Like, at least try. And then, I would rather try and fail to be able to say, like, hey, you know what? I gave it my best. It wasn't for me. But when I first started training to wrestle, there were 29 other people in my class, and I was the only girl. And I was 17 years old, and those guys were really hard on me. And I remember my trainer would tell them, beat her ass, whatever. Mm-hmm. And I find out later that they, like, my trainer was just like, we just didn't want to deal with another girl, because anytime a girl has started here, it's been drama, but you kept coming back. And some days I would question like, seriously, like, cause like when I say that they would beat my ass, like, I would come home with a busted mouth or bleeding from somewhere on my face at least once a week.
Right.
And like, it was definitely not easy. And I know that they were a lot harder on me in the beginning. And then, like, when I stuck with it and stuff, like, I just remember my trainer saying, look, you're a bigger girl for, like, what female wrestlers look like. And, because of your size, you're probably not going to be able to make a career out of this. It's probably going to be more of a hobby. So you might as well put your tits under your chin and start tanning and doing this and that so you could fit in as best you can, whatever. And for some reason, that really irked me that he would say that to me, because it's like, because when I first started wrestling, I think any one of us who get into wrestling, we have an idea of what it's going to, I'm going to be wrestling my favorite wrestler and at Madison Square Garden in front of all these people. Sure. And then we get into it, and then we're like, oh my God, this is terrible. Like, is this really how this is? And,
do you work hard? Are you a focused, determined, never say die type of person? Well, you need the right clothes to match that mindset. You need to check out Rest When Dead clothing. And I want to tell you all about it right now with a very special person, my daughter,
Hallie.
And how old are you again, Hallie?
7.
Oh, man, you're going to help me do this awesome ad read because you're such a good reader. I love it. Now, I want to tell my listeners that Rest When Dead is fitness and lifestyle apparel for the ones who never quit. They're a cutting-edge fitness apparel company that embodies the spirit of hard work and determination.
With a strong focus on cool designs, high quality materials, and exceptional fit rest when dead caters to individuals leading a demanding and active lifestyle.
At Rest When Dead, they understand that those who embrace a rigorous daily routine require workout and lifestyle attire that reflects their unique personality. That's why their design team works tirelessly to create innovative and stylish designs that make a bold statement, setting you apart from the crowd.
Rest When Dead is more than just a fitness apparel brand.
Yep.
Apparel brand. It's a lifestyle. They celebrate the hard work individuals. We strive for greatness in all aspects of their lives.
Their clothing is a symbol of dedication, perseverance, and the pursuit of excellence. So, whether you're hitting the gym,
going for a run,
or simply embracing your hardworking lifestyle,
Rest When Dead is here to provide you with the highest qualities, stylish and comfortable apparel
that embodies this essence. It's time to tell the world you will
rest when dead.
Rest When Dead is a wicked awesome Canadian company that ships worldwide. I want to say that again. It's a Canadian company that ships worldwide. Follow them on Instagram at Rest When Dead Clothing. That's Instagram at Rest When Dead Clothing. And you can check out their website at restwhendead.ca. That's
restwhendead.ca.
One more time for them, Hallie. What is it?
restwhendead.ca.
Give it to him one more time here, Hallie.
restwhendead.ca.
Awesome. Say bye.
Bye.
Because we've all gone through some really dark things, and like,
sure,
it was just
actually the era that you were growing up in. I don't think a lot of the modern women, and actually, and thankfully, they don't know about that, because things have changed so much, and expectations, and like, anyone that was, I guess, had any sense of morals or wanted to keep the wrestling school open or anything would say something like was said to you. But that I've heard that very thing said when I started to women all the time. Like, that was common at the time.
Yeah. And like, and that's the thing though. So, and that's what a lot of girls, when I'm talking to them about, like the girl, like the up and coming generation, they sometimes I really have to bite my tongue, because I get personally offended when I hear how some of these girls talk. And then I have to take a step back and be like, okay, people don't realize though. And you just said that something you said just a second ago, it kind of brings me to this point is, on September 5th, I celebrated my 20th year in this business as a professional wrestler.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I just couldn't imagine of making it this far.
Right.
But like, I'm really grateful. When I did start wrestling though, women were not taken very seriously. And now keep in mind, that's literally 2 decades ago. Yes. What was the state of women's wrestling 2 decades ago? Well, I was watching my favorite female wrestlers on TV doing bra and panties matches when they could wrestle just as well as some of the guys and even wrestle circles around some of the guys.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the era of wrestling when I was getting into it. And I dealt with a lot of discrimination in the beginning. And I hate using some of these words because, I just feel like some of these words these days are almost carry no meaning because people just throw it around and they, in my opinion, I feel like some people look for reasons to feel oppressed when really it's like, when I hear the way some girls talk about, like the business and like, well, I can't really think of a for instance, but I just want to grab them by the face and just be like, you have no idea. Yes. But it's like, I don't ever want to be that person. And like,
no.
I hate referring myself as a veteran. Like I never use that ever. Like I never go, well, I'm a vet in this business and I've never been like that. But I do feel that some of my peers tend to forget how long I've been wrestling and when I got into wrestling.
Yep.
And I dealt with so much shit and like this and things that I would never ever wish on any woman to go through.
Yes.
But that being said, I am so grateful for every experience I've had, positive and negative, leading up to this point, because it gives me gratitude and appreciation for where I am today. And I feel if I were just handed things like some people are these days, sometimes you don't have to wrestle for more than a year or 6 months and people are already getting put on TV with no experience. And for me, I just feel like, man, I'm so glad that it took me 10 years before I had that first TV spot, and it was at TNA. Yeah. And it was like, because if I would have gotten that opportunity sooner, Cody, I don't know that I would be where I am today. They might be like, well, because first impressions are everything.
Yeah.
And what if I would have gotten that opportunity a year in and shit the bed?
Yeah.
Or like had this, bad interaction, or like didn't say hello to everybody and like, just, oh my God, like, because like sometimes that's all it takes. One bad impression, and you don't know who's friends with who. It's a very small world in wrestling. So
two things came to mind. What you're saying there, Jessica. One was gratitude, because I was going to ask you, like, when you're saying all this shit that you had to put up with, like, how do you overcome that? Because there's somebody listening to this right now. There's a female wrestler or a female wrestler in training, or just a female that's, works at, I'm in Canada, so I'm going to say Tim Hortons, at a coffee shop, right?
Yeah.
And they're dealing with shit and they don't know how to overcome it. And I was going to ask you, like, well, how did you work your way through that? And I'm thinking, just listening to you tell your story, like you were able to have an outside kind of pullback perspective of gratitude, where you end up, rather than having those experiences be water that puts out your fire, you use it as fuel and actually say, I'm grateful that happened because of where I am now, and I was able to overcome it. You see, would you say that's how you were able to overcome that stuff, or is there something else that helped you through that?
It was a mix of things, and that's definitely one of them. Earlier we brought up how we sacrifice so much, and I just. And those sacrifices, they could come in many forms. It could be missing birthday parties or graduations, missing a funeral, not getting to, same.
We both have. Yep.
I was on the road. I don't know how much I could say, or I don't want to like offend someone. You know what I mean? But like, I remember being on the road and getting a phone call that my cousin committed suicide. And I just was like an hour away from the show. And it's just like, that news definitely affected me, but it was just like, I have to keep going. Like,
Yeah.
And I think that some people can't really wrap their mind around that. And that's why I always tell people, like, people who outside of wrestling, they'll never understand this business. They'll never understand. And though it is a form of entertainment, it's different than, like other forms of entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I feel like wrestling is definitely a different animal.
It's also to relate to what you're saying, because you're saying you don't want to offend somebody. And I can see how people that don't understand it could be offensive. But like for me, I remember I had a show lined up and I don't cancel shows. I just don't, no matter what.
I don't either.
And my father passed away a year ago. My dad died. It was sudden. It was unexpected. And it happened like on a Thursday. And I had a show that Saturday. And I talked to the promoter. He was like asking me questions. I didn't respond. I was like, hey, sorry, I've been I have to deal with my dad's estate and do all this stuff. And he's like, oh man, like, so do you have a replacement or what do you think I should do? And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, no, I'll be there.
Yeah.
He's like, what? I'm like, no, man. Like, not only is it because I don't want to cancel, which actually isn't the main reason. I'm like, I need to come on Saturday because it's going to be like therapy for me, because it's it's like, this is going to help me, because there's not much that I do in my life that forces me to be in the moment and just love where you are right now and just focus on what you're doing. And being in the ring is one of those things for me. So I don't have any other worries or issues or things I got to deal with when I get to be in the ring. So I'm like, no, dude, I will be there, and don't worry. And I know that's hard for some people to understand. And maybe they might even think that's selfish. I don't know, but I understand exactly.
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. It's, and I'm sure that you've experienced that similar situation many times too. Like, it's just one of those things, like growing up, my grandpa loved wrestling as well. And like my mom, like ever since I could remember, my mom used to watch the original Glow. So like, I remember watching that and watching wrestling since I was little. And like I think, why I stuck with it. So even through all, some of these struggles, cause I've definitely wanted to quit so many times, like, just because it's a fickle business and it's heartbreaking, and there's so much we go through that people don't realize. But and then people always say, well, why do you keep doing this then? It's because there's also so much good.
Yes.
And I feel like the good doesn't get talked about a lot. But like for me, when I was training and going through that, and then, my trainer telling me, well, you're probably not going to have a career in this, whatever. So you might as well just fall in line, basically this is the cookie cutter you need to look like. And like, keep in mind too, I was over 100 pounds less than I am now when I started. So I was so like, just like, I don't know, it was like a gangly, skinny thing that was being told from the second I started wrestling. They were like, oh, you're going to need to lose weight. And that devastated me, because up until I started wrestling, no one ever said anything about my weight. And I was super popular, even through high school. Like, I was like, it was funny because like, I was always an alternative girl, but like, I was friends with everybody. And I remember my high school made the biggest deal about it when I won Winter Homecoming Queen. And I was like, what? But like, they even put like in the yearbook, she's the first alternative girl to win Homecoming Queen and all this stuff. And I was just like, wow, this is crazy. Like, it's just such a funny thing. But like, I guess, and I'm sorry, I do go off on tangents and stuff.
That's okay.
I guess what has made me stick with this for so long, and like, even like that 10 years and before I got a shot on TV, is because I just remember the things that people would say to me. And I remember wanting to make my mom proud. And I was always a good person through school. I had good grades and stuff. And when I wanted to train to wrestle, she was like, okay, well, here's the deal. Because my mom helped me pay my first $500 for wrestling school. Then I got my job, and then I was paying, like, she was very supportive and always has been.
Oh, that's
she
so
was
wonderful.
Like, you can train to wrestle, but if your grades start slipping, you're done until, because that was important. Not many people in my family have graduated from high school.
Right.
So my mom was one. And then since my mom, my cousin Marissa, who's like 10 years older than me, and then me. So it's like, it was really important for me to kind of try to prove my trainer wrong. Like, I don't need to look a certain way and be a certain size. And like, it wasn't until like 5 years into wrestling that I was like, screw this, I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to go back to my alternative roots, and I'm going to go do this and that. And like, I took inspirations for my character. Like, one of my favorite bands ever is AFI. Davey Havok is the lead singer. I thought Jessicka Havok sounded cool. And I've been calling myself Jessicka Havok since I was a sophomore in high school. So like, and like, even through middle school, my friends were like, you're going to be a wrestler? That's so weird. But it's like, but then like all these years they reach out and they're like, I can't believe you're doing the thing. And I'm like, yeah, I wasn't joking.
Yeah.
But
did you start to feel, or did you start to get success? I'm curious. Once you decided 5 years in, you said, I just said, screw it, I'm going to stop doing the cookie cutter. I'm just going to be myself. Is that when you actually started to get some more success? I figured it would be.
Yeah, that's literally when all of the buzz started. So I just was like, screw it, I'm going to do this. I want to wear this gas mask, and I want to do all this stuff. And like, then these other companies, like one company that pulled the trigger on me, and helped me get buzz and helped me get booked to Shimmer and stuff, was WSU, is Women Superstars Uncensored. And it was based out of New Jersey, ran by this guy that everybody called the Mick. And he was the first promoter outside of Ohio who was like, hey, like, I want you to do this, and like, whatever, and it was like the first like decent payday I got too. And I was like, ooh, I'm hot shit. I got the, like, I just felt like validated for the first time ever. And like, and
that's
it
so
was
important.
just, and like, it became a more consistent booking. And then my name started being in the PWI magazines. I was in the top 50. The very first time I ever placed, I was number 5 in the top 50. And I was so just like, I was so happy and so proud. And I just remember like all my friends and my mom, like, buying up all the magazines at the stores and being like, this is my daughter, like, whatever. I don't know. It was really cool. It was really cool. But it was like when I first, like,
what
just
stands
said,
out?
screw it, I want to be myself.
Yeah.
That's when it all started falling into place.
I want to take a quick time out to tell you about a wicked awesome opportunity. Rest When Dead Clothing is celebrating their first summer as a company and their first successful Canadian summer tour with a contest. They are going to be giving away a trip for 2 to Las Vegas. Oh, Rest When Dead Clothing celebration, trip for 2, Las Vegas. This is happening for the month of October. You will receive 1 entry into the draw every time you tag Rest When Dead on Instagram. So that is at Rest When Dead Clothing on Instagram. Just tag them. You get 1 entry into the draw. If you purchase an item from restwhendead.ca. That's www.restwhendead.ca. You'll receive 10 entries for just a purchase of one item into that draw. You can tag unlimited amount of times on Instagram, Rest When Dead Clothing. You'll get an entry into the draw. You go buy a Wicked Awesome t-shirt or a tank or women's tees or a hat, and you will get 10 entries, and you have a chance to win in the month of October a trip for 2 to Las Vegas. The winner will be announced on November 1st. So check him out on Instagram, Rest When Dead Clothing, and on the interweb at restwhendead.ca. And that's what stand out to me. I don't think, Jessica, if you would have, for one, I don't, probably you wouldn't have been even have had a break unless you started to be yourself. But let's just say hypothetically, you decided, oh, I'm going to do the cookie cutter thing, and then you place number 5 in the PWI 500 with your fake tan and your not being the authentic you. I don't think any of those feelings that you just said you described would have been there. You said you were proud, right? And you weren't just proud because you proved people wrong and your mom went and bought the magazine. It's like you could have that pride because you did it your way. And I think that's so important for people to I think 2 things come from that. One, I think anyone listening that's wanting to accomplish anything, don't lose your true authentic self in your pursuit of what you're trying to accomplish. That's one. And 2, be very conscious of who you receive and accept advice from.
Yes.
Because if you only took the advice of your trainer who was telling you to act and do a certain way, for whatever reason they said that their story's their story, but they thought they were helping you by telling you to do that, right? Because of the way the business was. But if you would have taken that to heart, and because I took so many lessons of my trainer to heart because he was my mentor and my trainer. So like a lot of the things were gospel, but I since learned, like, wait a minute, not everything this person is saying is true. I got to take advice from other people and trust my gut on certain things. So I'm only going to take some, and some I'm going to throw out because that's not for me. You did that in that scenario, and you started to trust your gut, maybe listen to some other advice. I think that's so important in any line of work when you're trying to succeed.
And one of the people who kind of helped me, just decide, like, you know what, screw it, I'm going to do my own thing. And I'm not sure if you've ever heard of him, but there was this promoter and wrestler named JT Lightning.
Yes,
at
very
Cleveland
familiar with JT Lightning.
Cleveland All Pro Wrestling. It was a big deal to go wrestle there because he had that Sports Time Ohio spot on TV and like stuff like that. And it was just a public access channel, but that's like, it's one of those places where it's like, maybe I could be seen here. And like, he took me under his wing very early in my career. And I will always be grateful to have met him. And because he was the first one, even over my own trainer, to bring in actual like other women for me to wrestle. Because for the first year of my career, it was like all intergender matches. And like, because there weren't many girls around. There was me, there was Madison Rain and Nevaeh and a girl named Sassy Steffi. And then like a few years after that, Allison Kay came along, and then I kind of took her under my wing because I saw myself in her in a way. And it was just, so it was like, basically there was just a handful of girls, and now there's so many female wrestlers, and I love to see it. And and there's so many different stages for women to wrestle, so many women's wrestling companies now. And that's part of what makes me so grateful to have experienced all that all those years ago. And I like to think that I helped pave the way for girls who and make people realize, well, I don't need to look like Sable or, and no offense to any of these
Definitely.
women, but
No.
listen, they all have their place in this business. And I
Sure.
respect every single woman that came before me. But like, and I think women like Medusa and Bull Nakano, so before their time, like with stuff like
Absolutely.
gosh, like just, I don't know. I guess I just feel like happy to have experienced all that stuff leading up to this, because I feel like I was kind of part of that revolution of paving the way for girls. Because people reach out to me all the time, fans and other female wrestlers, like, oh, like, I didn't think I could ever do this, and then I was at a show and I saw you, and like you're the reason why I decided to do this. And because like we've had many down days in this career, and I know that you have too, I'm sure. And like there have been many times where I would be just sitting in my room crying, like, why do I do this?
Mm-hmm.
And then you get that email or that message, and I even get emotional thinking about it now, because it's like, even if one person is like, you helped me, it's like, what? So, okay, because like there's been so many times where I've been like, why did I choose this for my career? Like it's all for nothing. Like I have nothing to show for it. And then it's like, then you get these messages, and then like
so important.
And like even one person, but I've had so many.
Me too.
So it's like, oh my God.
Oh, isn't it so good?
Yeah.
I had a guy, I got to give you one of my examples, because I can so relate to what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I think this is another important thing for people to take away. Like, it's not, and this is for me, I'm speaking for me, and I think it's based on what you're saying, it's probably similar. Like, it's not the money, like some big money contract or this even big moment, right? Guys call it the WrestleMania moment or something. Like, it's not even those things that keep me going, even though those things are great. Those things do keep you going. Sure. But it's those messages and the real life moments that you're talking about, where you realize what I'm doing is actually important because it's helping another human being.
Yeah.
And if that's not what life is about, then I don't know what is. If we can't just keep moving forward and focusing on the positive and helping people. I had a kid that my brother brought his son, so my nephew, who's about 5 years old, to a show, and his favorite wrestler was this guy named Brickhouse. Mm-hmm. And this Brickhouse guy, shout out to Brickhouse, he might be listening to this. He was so awesome to my nephew. Gave him a hug, signed a poster, like made him fall in love with wrestling. And my brother showed me the 8x10, and I couldn't help but just smile wide. And he's like, "What, you know this kid?" I said, "Yeah. I went to that kid's 12th year birthday party." Brickhouse. Brickhouse. I went to his birthday party when he was 12. I played video games with him and his friends. And I was the reason that he wanted to get into wrestling. And he saw how I was with kids like him. So now I see him on shows now, and just being so kind and good to the kids and paying it forward, and and his mom messages me, and she's like, and she still remembers booking me for his birthday party. And it's like, man, knowing that I had that positive influence, not just to get somebody into wrestling, but then to also treat other people the way they should be treated. Yeah. Like, it doesn't get any better than that, right?
It does not.
Keeps us going. That keeps us going.
It really does. And that is part of it, kind of ties in with like some of the stuff that we were talking about earlier. That is one of the things that helps keep us going in this business when things are tough. And like, and just because you make it to TV, like once you make it to TV, it doesn't mean all that stuff goes away. We still struggle with things. Like it's like, I know that I have, like, even when I was on TV the first time, when I got my first job with TNA, and it was on Spike TV and all that stuff, like I was still struggling to make ends meet. And I think it's just one of those things where, like, I will say this to anyone who's listening. If you are getting into pro wrestling strictly to become rich and famous, good friggin' luck, buddy, because it's going to be a long, long road. Like that's the thing. Like, and you brought this up earlier. And it sparked this thought is like, while money is nice and, you know, these moments are nice. I didn't get into wrestling to be like super rich and famous. I got into this because for whatever crazy reason, I love it. And I happen to be kind of decent at this thing. So, and I do like entertaining people. And I think what takes people by surprise with me at shows is, you know, you see me come out, you see my size, you see that I am much bigger than a lot of these girls that I wrestle. And like I still do intergender matches to this day. I still, you know, I wrestle men and women and like I've had all these different matches. And then, you know, they see me the way I look and, you know, whatever. And then I also once in a while bust out a little suicide dive or a tilt-a-whirl head scissors in a match. And like, I like for my size, I am a little more athletic. So I don't know. It's just one of those things that like, it's just nice to know that we're inspiring people who would have otherwise thought, well, I'll never be able to do this because I look like this or, you know, whatever.
Well, you just answered one of my questions I was going to ask because I travel around. You spoke to it directly. I travel around and speak to young people at schools. Yeah. And it's a second career that I found myself, a second passion that I completely love. And when I tell these kids, like when I was a kid, I just wanted to be a professional wrestler. That was my goal. That was my dream. Like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And Jessicka, you know what the number one thing is the kids tell me when I say, what do you want to be when you grow up? They say, I want to be rich and famous. Huh. And I go, oh no. Okay. Well, and I'm like, well, rich and famous for doing what?
Right.
And they say, well, I don't care anything. Right. Like there's a huge problem with that.
There is,
you know, and I because it speaks to exactly what you're saying. And your answer is the same as mine. Mm-hmm. You didn't want to be a wrestler because you want to be rich and famous. You did it simply because you love it. And I talk to these kids like, I just heard this recently. I think it's so good. Like I wish I knew who said this. I just heard it in passing, I think on Instagram or something. It was like, find what you would do for free and make that your career, and you will never have a sad day in your life.
I love that.
And it's so true.
It is.
Promoters, turn your volume down. I would do this for free because I love it. Right?
I feel like we have.
You're right. That first 10 years we're talking about, basically it's what we were doing. Yes. Yeah. Right. And we did it for free and long enough that then finally we were able to make it a career. And like, that's what we were really striving for. You know, we were doing what we loved. And the crazy thing is those first 10 years are some of my favorite memories in wrestling of those first 10 years. And I'm making zero money. So that just goes to show it's not the money that's going to make you happy. Like you said, if you're doing this to be rich and famous, oh man, watch out. Because you're in it for the wrong reasons.
And that's the thing too. I think that's part of why, like, that could go into our answer as to why, like, well, if you're not making all this money, like, look, if I got into wrestling strictly to be rich and famous, I would have quit. I would have quit within the year. Like, that's the thing. Like, you got to have some sort of love for this, and you have to be willing to sacrifice a lot. And there were several months in those 10 years where I struggled to keep the lights on. I've had my electric and my water shut off so many times because I just had to go drive 15 hours to New Jersey to do this show. And like all my money went to gas and food. And like, that $150 that I got paid, well, that it's like all for like, I can't even say I break even because my checking account is still in the negative. I have to wait till I get paid for my actual job and like all this stuff. So it's like, it's a really, and this is another thing I tell people too, when they start training to wrestle is like, look, this business, it is not for everyone. And if you decide you can't do this, don't feel ashamed. That being said, maybe you can't be a wrestler, but there's so many other jobs within this business that you might like, that you could be. Like, you could be a referee, you could be a manager, you could be someone behind the video camera, you could be like, there's so many different avenues.
Good advice.
Yeah, like it's just one of those things, because you don't want to make people feel like, well, I just don't think you're going to be able to do it. So like, I would hate for a wrestler down the line to be doing a podcast like this and be like, oh yeah, well, Jessicka Havok told me that, like, I could never do this, and that, what, I never want to be that wrestler that stomps on somebody's dreams. But I will be real with you, and I will be like, look, it's not going to be easy. You need to have thick skin, and you have to be strong mentally, and you have to pick and choose your battles. There are so many things that I could tell people, but like, the one thing is, wrestling is not for everybody, and that's okay. It's okay. Like, that's why I said earlier, I would rather try and fail at something, and then I could at least say, well, I freaking tried.
Mm-hmm. So sticking with, I love how we're focusing on the positive, right? You said earlier in passing, like, I hate when the positive stuff doesn't get focused on, and that's one of my main goals with this podcast. Actually, is, hey, if I just shot on everything and dumped on everything and spoke negative, my numbers would probably be a lot higher than they are. But I don't. Sure. I'm not doing that, because I just want to speak positive things.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned your first big television break with your first run in TNA.
Mm-hmm.
In that first run, is there one kind of main positive takeaway that you have that comes to mind when you think of that first TNA run? Is there like one maybe lesson or positive thing, or maybe a mindset switch that you needed? You know what I'm saying? Like, is there one really positive thing that you took away from that first experience with the company? That is going to be the end of part 1 with my friend Jessicka Havok. I know that there is somebody out there that needed to hear some of the things that Jessicka had to say today in this conversation. There's at least one of you. If that is you, please let Jessicka know what she said today that helped you out. I know that she would love to hear from you. Hit her up on Twitter at Fear Havok. Hit her up on Instagram at Havok Death Machine, or join her Twitch community, a very positive one that she's got going on now. Jessicka Havok. That's Jessicka with the K. Why? Because she's sick. She's awesome, man. Like, I don't know about you, but I very much enjoyed our conversation today, and I know that you're going to enjoy the second part of our conversation next week. See, I said at the top of this episode that I'm a professional podcaster, and now I'm saying weech. Look, I'm getting really good at this. After all these weeks in, I'm getting really good, but I'm not going to hit stop right now and redo this outro. I'm plugging along. Why? Because I am a professional. As I was saying, Jessicka is awesome, and I know that next week you're going to enjoy the continuation, the part 2 of our conversation. If you don't want to wait until next week, then go over to my Patreon at patreon.com/Cody Deaner. The full conversation, part 1 and 2, all together, early and ad-free, is up right now. Both video and audio of that conversation, I put them up on my Patreon exclusively to my patrons. So go check out patreon.com/Cody Deaner and support this podcast, support this project, and support my guests. Now, I also want you to support Rest When Dead Clothing Company. I've been putting them over, and I will continue to put them over, not just because they have super high quality product that I am so proud to be wearing out and about in my life. Really love wearing the tank tops in the gym. I get comments on it all the time. But this is a small business based out of Saskatchewan, Canada, proud Canadian company. They ship worldwide, though. Don't be deterred just because from Canada. Actually, if you're in the US, you're going to save some money because of the conversion rate. Man, you're going to get some really wicked, awesome clothes for a fraction of the cost that you would getting in the US. And they source, this is one of the other things, they source most of their items from North America, which is contributing to local business and the local economy. And the majority of their profits are dedicated to various sponsorships and donations within the fitness industry. So you're helping support initiatives that promote health and wellness in the local community. I love it. I'm so happy that I've partnered up here with Rest When Dead Clothing, and I want you to go check them out at restwhendead.ca. Other ways you can support me is by going and buying a t-shirt at prowrestlingtees.com/Cody Deaner, or buying a video, personal video for yourself or a friend over at cameo.com/Cody Deaner. That's just some of the ways that you can support this podcast. If you can't support Rest When Dead Clothing monetarily, you can't support my podcast through the various means that I'm talking about, then you can support by right now, give me a 5-star review wherever you're listening to this. If you're listening to it on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, just click the 5 stars, put a quick little review, even just a sentence. It really helps me a lot. It helps the algorithm and helps my ratings and helps more people learn about this show, and maybe bring some more sponsorships to me as well, so I can partner with more awesome companies like Rest When Dead Clothing. If that's you want to partner with me, hit me up at ads@codydeaner.com or go to codydeaner.com/podcast. Fill out the form, and we can talk business about how I can bring some more business to your business, just like I'm doing for Rest When Dead Clothing. If you want to support me in person, where I will have in person at some of these events I'm about to tell you, I will have some Rest When Dead swag for sale at my merch table. I love working the merch table. Now I've just added some wicked awesome items to it with Rest When Dead. You want to come see me? Then you can see me actually tonight. I'll be in Newfoundland, St. John's at NEW. I'm doing a seminar this afternoon, and I'm going to be wrestling in St. John's, Newfoundland tonight. So check them out. Tomorrow on the 20th, I will be in Gander, Newfoundland with Horizons Conference, a leadership conference, speaking there. And then this weekend, I will be Bound for Glory, Impact Wrestling in Chicago. Go to impactwrestling.com if you want to get your tickets last minute for Bound for Glory or the Bound for Glory Fallout the following day on the 22nd. Then on the 25th, 26th, 27th, 28th, I'll be up north traveling the roads with my buddies with CWF. That's Canadian Wrestling Federation. I'll be riding the roads with them and loving life on the road as a professional wrestler. If you want to get me on the road to your event, then hit me up. Book me at bookcody@codydeaner.com, and I will share my love of wrestling with you and your fans. I can also do a seminar with your wrestlers and give you 23 years of knowledge to your wrestlers in your area. I love doing that. I'm doing that today, and I love doing it at all the events that I do, if that's something that is of interest to the promoter and the people that bring me in. If you're interested in bringing me to your school or youth event to speak, you can hit me up. Go to chrisgrayspeaks.com. That's Chris Gray, Gray with an A, speaks.com. You can see speaking reels, all the topics I discuss, and testimonials from all the satisfied clients, administrators, teachers, staff that have just loved having me at their wonderful schools. That's chrisgrayspeaks.com. Thank you again, guys, for all the support and all the stuff that I have going on. I'm right in the middle of actually the busiest month in my life. On the road wrestling, on the road speaking, very few days at home with my amazing 4 children and wonderful wife. So shout out to them for allowing me to do this, not just do this podcast and spend my time giving this content to you, but allowing me to go out and really live my dream. That sounds like hyperbole. That sounds like I'm exaggerating, but literally I am only doing things that I love right now. And it's because of my amazing family that I'm able to do that. I love speaking in schools. Oh man, it's so satisfying. I love professional wrestling. I have since I was 5 years old. And now I love this world of podcasting and talking with just amazing, insightful, generous, vulnerable people like Jessicka Havok. And I'm going to keep doing that because I only do things that I love. And I'm able to do that because of my amazing family. So come back next week. We are going to hear some more from my friend Jessicka. We'll continue our great conversation. And I know you're going to enjoy it too. So we'll see you next week, guys, on Wrestling is Life. Is wrestling. We'll see you next week, guys.
Wrestling is life. Wrestling is life. Wrestling is life. Is wrestling.